We're beginning. Today is September the 5th, 2018. We're at the house of David Malka in Paterson, New Jersey, correct?
No, in Clifton, New Jersey.
Clifton, New Jersey. Clifton, New Jersey. And we are going to talk about today a few things. First of all, we are going to talk about you and your involvement with the establishment of the State of Israel in 1947 and 48. But before that, we're going to talk about your father, Alav Shalom, Shlomo Malka, Harav Shlomo Malka, who was the chief rabbi of Sudan, correct? And we're also going to talk about the Jewish community in Sudan. So we're going to talk, it's going to be a long conversation.
Of course.
But before we start, I would like for you to please introduce yourself to me and tell me where you were born, when you were born, and what kind of house you grew up in.
My name is David Malka. I'm the youngest of 10 children of the late Rabbi Shlomo Malka and his lovely wife, my mother, Rabbanit Hannah Malka.
What was your mother's maiden name?
My mother, Asulin.
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 Sure.
She was originally from Morocco, and he was a student in studying to be a rabbi in Jerusalem, in Jerusalem, and he became a rabbi, and he was married in absentia to this lovely lady. She was a young kid, but this is history.
Yes.
They married, and as he is growing, they had 2 children, 2 daughters, Rabbanit Esther, and the second one was Fortuné or Mazal. And sure enough, somebody comes from Egypt to, you are just what I'm looking for. You're a young fellow. He was 27 or 28. And they need a mohel and in Sudan.
But where was your father born?
He was born in Tafilalt in Morocco. And
So
he was
born in Morocco.
in Morocco.
But at a young age, he comes to Palestine.
Yes, and you will have a complete reading about him, because
But
from Morocco to Sudan.
No, but
But
he went
at age 13 or so, after his bar mitzvah, his family sent him to Israel or to Palestine then
Palestine, yeah.
to become a rabbi. And he studied
Do you
there.
know where he studied in Jerusalem? Do you know where he went to
Oh, yes, I know
the yeshiva?
exactly.
Where?
Yeah, the yeshiva is, I have it all written down, but Givat Shaul? No, not Givat Shaul is the cemetery where he's buried. But I do know that it will come to me and I'll give it to you.
Not a problem.
The important thing is that he studied, and when he graduated, he couldn't become a rabbi unless he got married. So his brother, who's the one who sent him to become a rabbi, he says, you know, I've got a beautiful girl for you from the Asulin family, very famous family, and sure enough, they wed them in absentia. And then
Long distance. Long distance?
yeah, but he went and brought her.
So he went to Morocco and he brought her back to Palestine.
Yes.
And then he gets offered to go.
No, after he becomes a rabbi, he practices in a judgment or something like that.
In a court.
Yes,
Yeah.
for about 5 years.
Yeah. In Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem, and he had 2 children. I said,
Your older sisters.
my older sisters were born both in Jerusalem.
Uh-huh.
Sure enough, a rabbi chief rabbi of Egypt comes there. He says, oh, it's just you're a mohel, you're
A rabbi.
a rabbi, you're this, just what we need you. There is a fellow called Ben Sion Kosti. Ben Sion Kosti, that was forced to Islam in Sudan under General Gordon, who was assassinated by the Mahdi in 1883, and he was the people who were still there were 7 Jews, and it's all in the book. They wind up, Lord Kitchener comes and reoccupies the country, and in 1999 it's called the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan. 1899, of course, 1899.
Sudan. So when does your father arrive in Khartoum?
In Khartoum, so they, about 5-6 years there, the 6 or 7 Jews that were forced to Islam, one of them, Mandel, became Mandil, and he stayed Muslim. 4 others, Hakim and somebody else, and this fellow, he was hiding his
Judaism.
and he stayed with it, and he immediately goes north to Egypt. I want to convert my children. I have 4 children. And he converted it. It's a very lovely story. So they get this young 27-year-old rabbi from...
Father?
Yeah, my father, 28 years old, in 1906, without his children, to Mohel and to this. And this guy, his name, Ben-Sion, was called Basuni in Arabic. Basuni. Sure enough, he tells him, you know, I like you very much. You come and what do you need? I don't have a house. I have a wife and I have 2 children. I have to live. He did everything for him. He sat him a house and so on and so on. And sure enough, 1911, he stayed without his family for 4 years or 4 years. And they brought him and gave him a house, and the World War I just broke up, and they got a lot of... Bernard Goldring married my sister number 4. We had 6 sisters and 4 brothers, total 10. But the long and the short of it is that he got married, and they became very nicely advised, and after the war, they have to build a bigger synagogue. This is too little because it was his house and his... So they built a beautiful synagogue. They call it Ohel Shlomo.
Ohel Shlomo.
Ohel Shlomo. And this thing developed, and more Ashkenazi, they're a mixed society. And my father had to make a living. He built a factory to make macaroni.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And he did. There was no money to give him. The first man died in 1970. The one who developed him, Ben-Sion.
Ben-Sion,
So the long and the short of it is that by the 20s we had a beautiful synagogue, Ohel Shlomo, and by 1931 they brought the B'nai Brit establishment. They called it Ben-Sion Lodge in Khartoum.
Which year are you born?
I was born in 1923.
1923.
I'm the baby of the family.
You're the baby out of 10 children.
Out of 10 children, and actually I was not supposed to be born because my sisters and brothers all got married and they had started having children older than me. But my baby sister Victorine, she was born 4 years before me. So after 3 or 4 years, suddenly they have a baby. They didn't have it. And that's me.
1923. When in what month? What day?
October 30th, 1923.
October 30th.
On Halloween baby.
Halloween baby.
That's right.
Halloween baby.
That's right.
Tell me about Khartoum in the 1920s. What's going on there? It's a British colony, right?
It was a British colony, and my father was very connected with the British. He was always at the Governor General's house, invited for all the things, and he always took his bride. What's bride? Rabbanit.
His wife.
His wife of 10 children. She was with him. He wouldn't go anywhere without all the invitations.
What can you tell me about the Jewish community in Khartoum?
Well, the way I'm telling
Tell
you.
me about it. Who were these people? Were they weren't locals. They were probably merchants, and they came because of the British colony. It was easy
Most
to do
of them
business,
were
business people.
Were merchants and traders, and the older ones were traders of what you call it. They call it the local seed. They made cotton, and they made. With the animals, with the furs, they did a lot of things, and a small community dominated everything. We started in the 20s, and by the middle 30s we had a B'nai Brit Lodge, and we had a Maccabi Sports Club.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they started talking about, they called it the Jewish Recreation Club, and I'll tell you the story of Meir, my older sister's son Meir, and myself. This is another book story, because he became the scholar and I became the playboy.
The playboy?
So, yeah, well, what do you call playboy? I was the secretary of the Jewish Recreation Club, and he was the secretary of the synagogue. He ran the synagogue.
How many Jews were in Khartoum at the time, roughly?
Total. The total about 600, 700. At peak, never exceeded 1,000.
Okay.
At peak, 946.
And it was mixed, Ashkenazi, Sephardim, it was mixed.
It's always immediate from the 1911s, when the people started coming down. My daughters, my sisters, I'd like to tell you, 6 of my 10 children were all married Ashkenazi.
Ashkenazi, yeah?
Yeah. Esther Malka, that was the first one, a cousin. But the next one was Goldring. She married a Bernard Goldring, who was the chief of the post office. The next one married a Goldenberg.
Goldenberg.
Goldenberg,
Moroccan,
yeah,
name.
yes, Goldenberg. And then she married Brownstein.
Brownstein, okay.
So all of them, and the boys, 3 of them Ashkenazi, a Kramer, and only one is married to a Sephardic girl, Danon.
Danon, okay.
Hannah Danon,
Hannah
Jean,
Danon,
we called
yeah.
her Jean, Jeanette. So I told you that. But the growth of was amongst them all. One was the head of the post office, one was the head of the interpretation for the governments and so on.
But we're talking, but please explain to those who don't know, at this time Sudan is a British colony, correct?
British colony, yes.
And it's connecting, it's on the way to the Suez Canal,
Yeah,
right? So there's a lot of trade.
yeah.
And it's basically on the way from between India and Great Britain, Sudan's in the middle. And the merchants have to go somewhere or another.
Well, the important thing about Sudan is that the river Nile comes from and goes to Egypt,
and then it spills
and
out.
on the east, Port Sudan is on the Red Sea.
Right.
And it was a great, during the war, Mayor and I were not officers, we were only 18 or 19. We were working for the British.
What were you doing?
I was in the Navy, and he was in the to prisoners, and a very good staying, and you have it here in your thing, is that not Nahimedan, what's in here?
We'll get to that in a sec, but I want to talk about your father.
Yeah.
Tell me about your father. What kind of person was he?
A brilliant man who has written, all his lectures were written in Arabic and Hebrew, and they were all printed in Egypt. And then my brother, the lawyer, wound up what do you call him? Translating them to English. And all his lessons are here in this book, which I cannot give you, but you can get it because this is the history of the Sudan. The whole history.
Can you
of
hold
it.
the book up for the camera? Can you show the book? Can you hold the book up and show it to the camera?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I can show it to you.
Hold it up.
This is the children, Jacob's children in the land of the Mahdi. And
What is Mahdi?
Mahdi is the gentleman who killed General Gordon in 1883, and there were 6 Jews who were forced to Islam, and he died 1 year before Kitchener reoccupied the Sudan. Lord Kitchener came and reoccupied the Sudan, and the whole story is in this book.
And this book is written by S. Malka.
Eli, my oldest brother.
Oldest brother.
And he was there for the 50th anniversary of my father's in Israel. We went together, he and I. We've been to Israel many times. So the important thing is this book. I cannot give you.
What can you tell me about your father on a personal level? On a personal level.
On a
What kind
personal.
of person was he? What kind of father was he? What kind of husband was he?
It's a very genius man. For instance, the Shabbat evening, Friday night, was a command performance. Everybody had to come to the house. We had, of course, a big house, and whoever, not the families, whoever is new in town, the moment they come to the Jewish head, come to the, this is how his...
Did you have a big house?
Well, about 4, 5 bedrooms, and of course a big, huge yard, and kitchen and servants and.
You had servants.
Oh, we had at least 3 servants. A woman to handle the children. Unbelievable.
Bourgeois.
Absolutely, another world altogether. But he was a smart man and a sociable man. He mixed with the governor, he mixed with the... he's the only one when he died, the chief of the Islam, the chief of the Catholic, the chief of the Greeks, all came to his
funeral.
To his funeral.
His funeral was in Khartoum?
In Khartoum in 1949, and then we brought it to Israel, where he wants to be buried, at Givat Shaul.
Givat Shaul.
Yes.
In Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem, he's buried there. But again, quite a gentleman, and as I said, he's been around. But I really insist, I may be able to get you a copy of this.
It's fine. Don't worry about that.
From his son.
I understand. It's fine.
There is a copy in Ben Zvi Institute.
That's fine.
And the second thing, you have the number here. I gave it to you. When I give it to you, ISBN. Yeah. I gave you a copy here, and you put that there, and I give you even my.
Okay. Can we continue?
Yes, we can continue.
Okay. So tell me.
Yeah.
When you're growing up in Khartoum.
Yeah.
Do you belong to a youth movement? Is there a Jewish youth movement in the city?
No. We are a small community, and there were, I'd like to tell you, at maximum at any one time there were 10 or 12 Jewish boys. And we never had a school. My father and his assistant, eventually had an assistant who was the shohet and who was this. And he used to, and Mayor became the principal of that. We went to a Catholic school.
Okay.
And he made a deal with the, and I made it to you. Yes, here. He made a deal with the, because this is very interesting to know. He made a deal with the
Let me see.
principal of the school.
Let me see.
Bishop Maroni.
Okay.
Yes. He made a deal with him that Jewish boys do not take catechism. They take Hebrew class, which he will deal with, and he will assign somebody to teach them. So we went to a Catholic school and wound up went to a Catholic school and wound up studying Hebrew in the Catholic school with this approval of this man.
Okay.
And this man, 50 years later or 30 years later,
Archbishop Agustin
Baroni.
Italian guy.
Yes, yes. He died, but he came to the United States in 1883, which is the centennial of that school, and they called me from Verona here to tell me that His Grace wants to see you. He became Archbishop. He was school president. So, and he says, you know, I allowed you to learn your Hebrew. Now I need you. I understand you're a successful man, and I need you to help me. I put up a big what do you call it? Party, dinner party. $55 a piece in 1883. That was money, and it cost $10. We made $60,000. A month later, I get called by the same Verona mission. You know, His Grace has recommended to the Pope to give you a blessing. His Holiness the Pope gave me a blessing.
I see.
Okay?
Okay.
And I put it next to my father.
Yeah, next to your father?
Yeah.
Okay. So-
because here is the results of a man who's a Christian, who's a Jewish scholar, and they accepted the Catholic faith to help us.
Now tell me, I want to go back to Khartoum.
Yeah.
I want you to stay focused with me.
Yeah.
Khartoum, when you're growing up there in the 1920s, 30s, are you? So there's no school for Jews. There's no. Are you in the Boy Scouts? Are you in some kind of?
Boy, here I was
see.
in the Boy.
I'm asking. Yeah. Tell me
I was
about
in the
this.
Boy Scouts. My brother and I were in the tennis court. There was a Sudan club where you played tennis, and what else? And then we had Malka, because I had school with other people. There are 1,000 scholars and 10 Jews. So somehow we make friends, multicultural.
But
I call it.
You were friends with the Goyim, no problem.
With the Goyim?
No problem.
I call it multicultural experience.
Upbringing. And it says here also the Three Musketeers. Who are the Three Musketeers?
What? One of them is dying. He's still in. Came to work for me in Ontario, in Canada. The other one died. One Greek, one Armenian, and one Jewish boy.
One Greek, one Armenian, and one
And the
boy.
Jewish head.
You guys all grew up together in Khartoum.
In Khartoum.
And they were good friends of yours.
Very good friends.
Yeah. So very multicultural. You're learning. You're also in Khartoum in the 19. Hold on a second. Let me just bring this.
In the 1939.
1939. Wait. First of all, you have a bar mitzvah in 1936.
Yes.
Right.
And
You
after
have a bar
that,
mitzvah.
around the time of the bar mitzvah, things were a little down, but we started a Maccabi sports club. We used to play soccer, football, and tennis, and I don't know what. And we built a little club, which after politics then we changed the name from Maccabi Sports Club to Jewish Recreation Club.
Okay.
And I became the secretary of that.
Were you in 1939?
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. In the late 1930s,
Yeah.
when Nazi Germany, before the war, there's the Nuremberg laws and there's Kristallnacht. Do you hear about these things in Sudan, or are you
Yes,
guys
of course.
cut off?
Of course, we were cut off. We did not cut off. We heard about these things, but we were much more British oriented. You understand? The British. There is a Greek club, there is a Jewish club, there is an Armenian club, and of course we have a party and they have a party. They were not huge clubs, but they were nice clubs that we invited each other.
In 1939,
Yeah. Can I answer the phone?
wait a sec.
Answer the phone, Zaina.
Hold on. Here.
Yeah. I'm back.
Okay, you're back. You're with us.
Yeah.
Very good. In 1939, the war breaks out.
Yes.
September 1939.
I just finished
You are 16. No, you are.
19. I was born in 23.
So in 39,
I was 16.
16.
16, I had just finished high school, and they started recruiting all the white boys.
Sure.
The blacks were soldiers. We started with the rank of warrant officer.
Wait a second. So at the age of 16, you go into the British Army?
I
No.
didn't go to the British, into the Sudan Defense Force. Sudan's Defense Force. We all joined, mayor, myself, etc. And this is a story that is to
Tell
be
me the
told.
story.
Mayor was with
Your
the
brother.
Occupied Enemy Territory, OWITA, Occupied Enemy Territory Administration, in Eritrea, which was next to us,
Italian.
near Percent. The Italians were Ethiopians, so the British took over, and the Jewish boy, one Jewish boy, he was in OWITA, I was in the Navy to Port Sudan, Red. So we started not in, I had to be 18, so for 2 years I went to college to get an associate degree, what you call an associate degree. For us it was an Oxford curriculum.
Okay.
Okay, so it's British education, of course. So what happened in that war is that we fought, we did, and for me, I never got hit by a bullet, but we went out and we shipped a lot of arms to Tobruk, to Africa, North Africa, to Egypt, North, etc., because that was the fighting from Morocco, from the damn British, from the Germans, and we knocked them out of. But the long and the short of it is that where were we? Mayor wound up in occupied enemy territory, and what did he find at the tail end of before the war ended, is that about 4 or 5 Jewish boys, Israeli, including, what's his name? What's the name? Including, here we are, Yakov, Itzhak Shamir and Yakov Meridor.
Okay, so that's exactly what we want to talk about.
From the camp of, and put them in his home after they broke out. David's niece, Mayor's daughter, Joy, whom I'm copying on this mail, informs me that David is elderly but is possessed of a great memory. His telephone number is so. That's who referred you to me. The daughter, the baby daughter of Mayor Malka, who is in Israel, Ra'anana.
So, so I just want to get this territory association in Sudan with his brother Meir. Meir and his family supplied the British detention camp for the Irgun and Lehi prisoners in Asmara.
He gave them
with its kosher
British food.
And Meir aided the escape of Yitzhak Shamir and Yakov Meridor from the camp and put them in his home after they broke out. So did he
for a day, not for
but did he ever tell you about helping these people?
Yeah, of course.
No,
we talked about it. Yes.
What did he tell you? What did he tell you
that's
about?
what he told me.
Did
you know, what
these...
could I do? They came, they ran away, whatever. I said, come to my house for a day. The next day, they flew back.
Do you know who these people were?
Well, I know at the time, yeah. At the time I knew about Shamir.
Okay.
It's Shamir, but the other fellow I don't remember
Yakov
him.
Meridor. He was
Yeah,
Begin's. He was close with Begin.
Yeah, well, I didn't know him. I didn't meet them because it was a thing of a day. He brought them from the root and they grew out. But this is the story of Meir with me. But the story of Meir and me.
Continue. Yes.
This is a copy for you.
I'm just looking. Yes.
This is my card. This is the story of the Meir. So, as far as I'm concerned, that's the story of Meir. How we grew up. Now the World War came, and we went this and we went that, and the older people stayed in, and you got the story here, day by day. Now, his son is a doctor of medicine, retired chief of college in McLean, Virginia, in the Washington, D.C. area. Dr. Jeffrey Malka. Here are my parents. And my mother. I'm her baby. And you have some funny stories. I started this book
What about? Wait. After, so are you like throughout the war? What are you doing?
What was I doing?
During the war, what are you doing?
I said for 3 years I was in the
Studying
no, I was in the Navy
in Port Sudan.
in Port Sudan
Okay.
for 3 years.
What were you doing there?
I was in the British Navy.
In the British Navy.
Yeah.
Were you on land or were you on a boat? Were you like traveling?
On a ship.
On a ship.
On a ship.
And where did you guys go to? North Africa?
Just the Red Sea.
You patrolled?
Shipping.
Patrolling?
Yeah, and shipping certain goods to go to Egypt.
To go to Egypt.
Yeah.
Were you in any action? Any battles? Any?
Hardly any. We had a lot of things, but
It
they
was quiet.
never got to us.
Yeah.
They stopped at Egypt.
Yeah. You guys are kind of isolated in a way.
Well, we were isolated. The other ones were occupied enemy territory administration. That's the two services. And as I say to you, the services that the soldiers are black. Everyone, you were about 18, and I was a warrant officer. You know what a warrant officer is?
Correct. Yes.
Instead of an officer,
So-
but a warrant officer.
So after the war is over,
Yeah.
yes. What happens with you?
Well,
When do you get out of the army, out of the navy?
out of the Navy, my brother was married, so they didn't, Samuel, and he was in Port Sudan with a shipping company, and he got me a job, and his daughter, Vivian, who died last year, I was at her birth in Port Sudan. Only one, because he was there in the war. And the long and the short of it is that, what shall I say? He offered me a job with the company. So sure enough, I joined the company, and where am I? I'm going back to Khartoum. Why? Because
Yeah.
a pretty Jewish girl called Jean
Danon.
Danon. She was my brothers all married Ashkenazi, and I am married also an Italian descent Jewish girl.
Really?
Yes.
How did you meet her? After the war?
No, after the war. In the club when we were developed the club, you call it Jeffrey. I was the secretary, and she was helping. She liked to dance. I liked to dance. We fell in love as kids, but no kissing, no nothing. So immediately after the war, we finished the war in 1944. A month later, I had to wait till I'm 21 to get married. I waited 5 days, from October 30th, my birthday, to November 5th. I got married. to this pretty girl.
1944?
Not here, 45.
45.
No, 44, November 5th.
November 5th, 1944.
Yeah,
You got
after
married.
the war.
After the war.
Yeah.
And wow, so you got married right very quickly.
And we married and we lived beautifully, and then she got hit with pancreatic cancer after 50 years of marriage. And she's gone. So what do I do? My story is in my book, of course.
Of course.
I became a president of a Dutch conglomerate that I eventually owned and eventually sold for a couple of $1 million to the goddamn Polacks who were suppliers of the nails. That's the building material aspect. It's a whole story around the world in 8 years.
When was the first time you ever went to Israel?
Oh,
The first time.
the first time was 1972.
1972. And your father died in 1949.
49.
And he was buried in Khartoum?
No, he was buried in Khartoum, but as required, there was a fellow called Jafar and Mary, and of course, he is the descendant of my father, the number one. He made a deal to charter a plane, whoever wants to take their children to Israel. It cost $3,000 or $5,000 in those days. And they chartered a plane. There were about 25 people more than that, 35, who were traveling in a Givat Shaul, a very nice...
When was your father's burial brought to Jerusalem? 50, 51?
71, 72.
1972.
Yeah,
And that's when you were in
13
Israel.
years. That's when I went to.
To rebury your father in Jerusalem.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's
Now tell me about what happened to the Jewish community in Khartoum. When did the things start to change?
Well, as I said, the first thing was 1956. After they became a republic in 1955.
Wait, the British gave Sudan its independence?
Its independence in 1954,
Uh-huh.
and they actually took over in 1955.
Uh-huh.
And the first thing they started doing was my brother, he wrote about 4 books. He was an attorney, but he worked for the British, and he was in Israel. My father sent him to become a rabbi, and he became an attorney. He became an attorney, and then, of course, the Israelis didn't like him because he worked for the British. And
the Sudanese didn't like him because he worked for the British.
no, but he's a Sudanese. He translated the British law to Arabic.
Is that what they speak in Sudan?
In
Arabic?
Sudan,
speak
at the
Arabic.
time,
Yeah.
at the time. Since then, they became a social republic or whatever. But Edmund became,
Who's Edmund?
Edmund is my brother, number 2.
Number
After
2.
this one, Edmund.
Edmund. But what happened to the Jews of Sudan? Please explain to me and to the people that are listening to this
I'm
interview.
going to tell you. First, it's my family. Second was an attorney. He winds up when they kicked us out. Why? Because they think he was a spy for the Jews, and the Jews didn't want him because
He was with the British.
He was British. So he went to England, and what do you think? He got a job in Ireland, and he wound up in Ireland, and his son, David, my namesake, gets married to a Goyish girl, and my father, he was not yet 21. My father sues the priest because he married him he was not yet 21. And of course, they declared him persona non grata and they kicked him out of Ireland. He called me, what do I do?
Let's go back to Sudan, Khartoum.
Yeah.
You said at the peak of time, the
Yeah.
Jewish community was about 1,000 people at the peak.
Yes,
Right at the peak.
yes.
What happens after 1956? Sudan becomes a republic. It becomes
It becomes a
independent.
republic,
It becomes
anti-Israel.
anti-Israel.
And they are very strong, and of course they were going to kill all the Jews. What they did, the ones who were there, most of them left to Switzerland, to England mostly, England and Switzerland. The ones with the money went to Switzerland, and the ones with the went wherever they could go, but mostly under the British. We had British passports.
Right.
Yeah.
So, at this time, in 1956, you're already married. You
Yeah.
have children,
Yeah,
right? In Khartoum,
I had two children.
two children.
Yeah.
Where do you go? When do you leave Sudan?
Immediately after 1956, they kicked us out.
Do you remember
We
this?
went
Do you
to
remember them kicking you
England,
out?
of course.
Tell me about it.
Oh, he wrote a book about
Tell
it.
me about it. Tell me.
Well, I'll tell you.
Please.
First of all, I went to England. My daughter, my two little daughters, one was 4 and one was 8. They were at her sister was married to an Englishman. They went to Yorkshire, and Daddy went to London, and we started looking for what do we do.
But what happened in Khartoum? How did they kick you out? What did they tell you? I'm not talking about England. What did they do to you? What did they say to you? How did it happen?
I'd like to tell you, I was a partner in a business called Sharikat Lawazim al-Bana, which means Building Materials Limited.
Okay.
That's another story. It's in my book.
Continue, please.
So, Building Materials Limited was owned by a British company called Boxhall and Company, and I owned 20%. So, sure enough, my 20% was worth something like $25,000. It was money in those
Yeah.
days. So, these people who were British helped me a bit, helped me a lot. I sent some money, believe it or not, through this bishop. I trusted him with £5,000. I got it here. At the time, $4 to the pound.
$4 to the pound.
I got $20,000 here. And the rest of the money I got cash, and so I arranged with the British. They helped me send out some money, helped me. So again,
But what happened? The government of Sudan gave you a paper and said, get out? What happened?
yeah, absolutely.
Tell me, please. Tell
What
me.
do you mean, what happened?
How did
You
this
are
physically-
no longer a citizen. You have to leave here before the end of the year. Letter. I have all these things.
Where?
Maybe
And this was the end of the Jewish community in Sudan,
the end of the Jewish community in the
in
Sudan.
Khartoum, right?
That's
Khartoum.
right. Okay, finding treasures in unknown places.
Take your time. Take your time.
Here is my old company in Khartoum, Building Materials Limited. In the space of 2 months, I had to leave the Sudan.
2 months?
60 days. And I left the Sudan before the end of November in 1956. And I went to London, and within a couple of months, I had a visa to come to the United States or to go to Australia. I came to the United States. And the rest is another history. Well,
Mr. Malka leaves the Sudan on immigration to the USA on his own accord, and he will and we will all wish him the very best of luck in his new life.
that's what I wrote. Yeah.
So this was like a letter of from your former employees at the Building Materials Ltd in Sudan.
That's
in
right.
Khartoum. So you had to leave.
What?
You were a refugee. No?
Suddenly I have no status. A lot of people had to leave. I'm going to give you a couple of books if you want them. You don't want them, you don't. These I cannot give you, but these are the important ones.
You made a list here of things that you wanted to talk about.
Yes.
I want to go over. I want you to read this list to me. And let's
To
talk.
start with, I told you about Rabbi Solomon Malka and how he was, as in the Jacob's Children letter, he was he was well liked and very compassionate and.
Who?
My father,
Yes.
and he knew all kinds of. At his funeral, every Muslim, head of Islam, head of the Catholic,
Imam.
all came to the funeral.
What else is on that list that we need to talk about?
Well, this is one,
Okay.
and then the next one was about Meir, help to Yitzhak, Shamir, and Yakov, whatever his name is. Yes. Then. Back to that's it. Then, of course, the development of the 50th anniversary meeting. Then this came the development. I am now here in the United States. My father, his dying wish was to be buried in so and so. So my brother meets the not president, prime minister
Of
Sudan, which in 1967 to 1972 became socialist. And Jafar al-Numeri came, who was here at the United Nations. My brother lived in New York City. Went and met him. How are you? They were buddies in Khartoum. I said, and he said, I've got to get this done. I've got to get my father's body from there. I've got arranged.
Really?
The prime minister arranged, but of course the cost was phenomenal in those days. So everybody paid who wanted, they got their thing, including the bodies of my parents.
Oh, so that's what I was going to ask you. Your mother also was brought to Jerusalem.
She died
both
3 years after him.
She died 3 years after your father?
52, and he
52.
died in 49.
In 49. Do you think your father would have been very sad to see what had happened of the community in Khartoum?
I'm sure he would have, but he was quite a... he socialized a lot, but things have changed completely because now they became Muslim. And now this is another world. The white people are bad people. I am not there, but I left there at the end of 56, and I came here on exactly on March the 13th, 1957. Now I am here 19 years, 62 years. 62 years.
And you've never been back to Sudan?
Not to the Sudan, but I've been to Egypt, to the whole world.
Did you ever think about going back to Sudan? Did you ever think about...
What on earth for?
I don't know. For your...
It didn't bother me at all because my world became another world. Borneo Sumatra trading, how did I ribbon cutting at the new office. I built up an office for $200,000, sold it for $1 million. I did all right for a young boy from Khartoum. My brothers, my friends.
Do you remember when the state of Israel was established?
Yes, of course. Of course, 1946 or 8.
48.
48, yeah.
Yeah?
48.
You were in
Yes.
Khartoum?
That's and you should have seen my father's writing about Israel.
What did your father write about Israel?
Oh, the enormous writings.
He was...
Also in the book.
Was he happy? Was he happy that he lived to see the establishment of the state of Israel?
Of course, he was anti-Japan and writing. He was a fantastic man. he wrote in the Egyptian press. He wrote quite a bit. Yes, and he was, oh, what a great celebration he had when Israel became a state.
Did you ever think about going to Israel and fighting in the War of Independence, or you were already?
No. As I said, my thing was, where do I go now? So I came to here, and this is another story you should know. How do I come? I come here, and I am sitting at in the Sheraton Hotel in New York. It's meant to be. And I meet a Dutchman friend of mine. What are you doing here, Jew boy? I said, they threw us out of Sudan. Oh, what are you doing? I'm going to a meeting. We went to a meeting in 59th Street, where they have a whole trade show, about building products, which is my field. And I meet a gentleman called Jan van Thiel, who was just kicked out of Indonesia, and he was supposed to run the company here in New Jersey, in Wall Street, spices and lumber and
Sure.
so and so.
Sure.
And so we started talking, and I go to he said, oh, let's talk in the morning. We went to the show. So I go to them. I was looking for a job. For what do I do? I asked. I had a couple of bucks. What do I do? They said, find a job.
Where did most of your siblings go after they had to run away from Sudan? Where did most of them come?
He went to, to Switzerland.
Ellie?
Edmund went to Ireland, and Sam went to Sam went to Kenya, and then I brought him here to work for me. Malka.
Here that we need to talk about. Let's
What's
go.
that? Yes, again.
Yeah.
Then the 50th anniversary, what is that? Yeah. Then we didn't talk much about this.
Okay.
This man, Mr. Nahem Elan.
This is from Morocco to Sudan. Rabbi?
That is
Shlomo?
after this. This is what he wrote first in Hebrew. Misraim. And
קהילות ישראל במזרח במאות ה-19 וה-20.
Okay, and he has a section here.
Yeah, I'm going to look for it. Hold on.
Here.
It's in Hebrew. הקדמה, סודן ושכנותיה. סודן היא ארץ גדולה. Okay, Port Sudan.
Yeah, and
here's your
here
father.
is where you see my father.
And here's your father. I will read it. הרב שלמה מלכה.
Yeah.
נולד באסלפו במחוז שבמרוקו 1878 ונפטר בחרטום ב-1949. בנעוריו למד בישיבה בעירו. ב-1896 נשא לאישה את חנה לבית אסולין. אסולין. ב-1898 עלו הרב מלכה ורעייתו ארצה. כך המשיך את לימודיו בישיבה בטבריה. He studied in Tiberias and in Tzfat, not in Jerusalem.
No.
In Tiberias and in Tzfat, וגם הוסמך לרבנות. כעבור זמן מה? שב וחזר למרוקו, חזר לארץ ושימש כחבר בבית הדין הרבני בטבריה. מקום מושבו. He lived in Tiberias.
Yeah.
And he was a part of the council of rabbis in there.
That's right.
Okay, ב-1906 נסע לסודן לבקשת הרב אליהו חזן מאלכסנדריה.
And following that is this.
Hold on, wait, and it says here, Rita. Very interesting. And Ben Zion Kushti. You know who that is?
Yeah.
That's who we talked about, right? He was your father's. He's the guy who brought your father to Sudan.
And he has 4 children, and the good story about it, 3 of his children all went to Israel. One is the doctor of medicine. He died in Where was he? No, I can't remember the date, where the town. And his sister, and two sisters, Naomi Levy, Cesar Levy, all in Israel. Three of they are half black, and their children are quarter black. Their children, one of them is a Professor Levy in Tel Aviv University. It's a very interesting subject.
The Nile starts in Sudan, doesn't it?
No, it starts
In below.
it meets in Khartoum.
Okay.
One section comes from Ethiopia, that's the Blue Nile, and the White Nile comes from Uganda.
From Lake Victoria.
Yes.
Right, Lake Victoria?
Yeah, Lake Victoria, all the
correct.
way down to Khartoum,
yeah.
and they both meet in that, and now it's one line to Egypt, all the way to Egypt.
Port Sudan. What kind of place was Port Sudan when you were in the Navy?
Was it
a wild place? Was it a kind of a wild place?
Not really, not at all. It was a town. The British were there, and
Was there bars and restaurants and cafes?
of course, everything. Port Sudan is a city, a well-known city.
What do you miss the most about your childhood in Khartoum?
I don't miss. It is history. It's 62 years ago, and after I left, it became history.
And you never looked back at it?
I don't look back. I look forward. I don't know if I'll make it to 100, but who knows? Look at this. This is he tells the real story here. This man. Other than the Hebrew book. Yeah.
And this is?
This is Nahem Elan. I put it there for you to know who he is.
Okay.
Because the subject I want to add
Yes,
is that
What is the subject that you wish to add here, sir?
is that Ben Tzvi Institute is an institute in Jerusalem for the development of unknown communities of Jews. And that is where he was vice chairman at the time. Now he's a professor of a million things. But Mr. Nahem Elan, started by writing this book, and having done that, he travels all over the world because he worked for the government at the time. But Ben Tzvi is an institute that is collecting, what shall I call them, documents and so on of all people. For the Sudan, and I'll give it to you here, they have all the documents of birth certificates, wedding certificates, etc., all at the institute, from all countries, but from Sudan they also have, and they have this book, and they have this book, and they are unbelievable. This is, and who was the man who was doing it? This guy. He became a professor in Tel Aviv University. He called me a minute before you telephoned. He was on the phone. Nahem Elan, we are good friends. And he did a lot of work, so a lot of the history of the Sudan is in Ben Tzvi Institute.
In Jerusalem.
I can give you their address also.
I know where it is.
Yeah,
I've walked by there many times.
Okay.
What else is on our list here?
What?
What else is on the list?
Other than that, Nahem Elan, so I told you about him.
Hold on a second, I'm just closing
Yes.
this window here because it's making a lot of noise.
Good, good. Okay. Okay. You want to go back to there?
No,
because
please continue.
the update around here. So now we come to the recent world. This fellow came here and he got this and now what? Now it's a new world, 2000. So my brother died, the oldest died.
Mayor?
No, Eli.
Eli.
This guy died in 2002 at age 94. The attorney died at age 84. Sam, who was, he died at age 67, the heart attack. I have no problem with my heart. He had a problem with his heart. So these are the 4 boys. The girls, the 2 who were born in Israel and died in Israel, and the other 2 moved from here to Israel. They're all in Israel, 4, and only 2 are here. One, Brownstein in what do you call it, in New Jersey, and she died also. Everybody died. I'm the only one that's still around.
Maybe you're the last one from the Jewish community in Khartoum.
Oh no, I don't know. There are a lot over here. So you know, when we started moving the things, we had a fellow called OBA, officer of the British Empire, a fellow called Leon Tamam, T-A-M-M-A-N, and he had, as secretary, he had all the documents. He went and took them to Ben Sweet, and he met with Nahem, and a lot of history, the development after that. So now there is the next generation, very good generation in Switzerland, and very good generation in England. They're all over in England. They are not. The Tamans, they're all 3 of them, 4 of them. And there's one who is 100 years old, older than me, classmate of mine. I was the principal of his.
What's his name?
Zaki Murad Al-Aini. In Arabic. His whole family died, but he's 100. And his daughter, his daughter is not doctor of medicine. She was an associate in medicine and married a doctor, and they live in California, in Florida.
In Florida.
Yeah.
David, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you feel that we didn't touch on our interview about?
Well, I don't know, but all I wanted to say, what should we, if anything, do about it? First of all, this is all in Hebrew. I want to give it to you.
I don't have how to take it, but but we will figure it out. But what about the list here that you have?
This is all yours.
Okay, the list here.
You want that?
No, I want you to make sure that we didn't leave anything out.
Oh, I didn't leave. What I want to do is to show you the rest of it around the world in my office.
So we're going to stop now.
Yeah?
And then we're going to move the camera into there, and I'm going to take the pictures.
Wonderful.
Okay, so let me stop this.
Okay.